coming to you from the home of the mini trees. Inspirational, motivational, so come along with us.
Hey, welcome to Pixel Talk. I'm Tage. This week's edition brings you an interview with Richard Shaw, the Dean of Admissions at Stanford, and a segment by Maya and Shannon in which they tour some of San Francisco's landmarks. Hi, my name is Tage Singh, and I'm broadcasting from New Jersey on behalf of Stanford Online High School students from across the globe. So, hello world. With us here today is Mr. Richard Shaw, the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid at Stanford University. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start off, what does a typical day look like for an admissions officer during this time of year when the applications haven't started coming in yet?
Well, we just welcomed the new class of 2020, and Stanford starts a little bit later. So we're just heading out now to reach out to prospective students. The class of 2021 is about to apply to the university. And so we have admissions officers fanning out across the nation and across the world. This is typical of universities and colleges this time of year. We haven't started the review process. We're really, at this point, talking to prospective students, trying to share information about the college admissions process as well as respectively, about Stanford. So we're busy traveling, busy preparing, busy training. It's a full-time job.
And so speaking of the new incoming class, they're obviously a special group of kids. And it must be really hard to choose a pool of selected kids from an enormous number of applicants. What sets apart the admitted candidates apart from the others? Is there something in particular that just comes to mind?
Well, this is a process that is national and international. This is a rite of passage. Young people are applying to many schools across the world, across the nation. And everybody wants to know the question you just asked. What is the secret as it relates to the characteristics of young people getting into any particular institution? And certainly if it's highly selective, everybody wants to know the answer. And actually, there's no specific answer to the question. It really is, we try to look at every young person in terms of their context, in terms of their own life story, in terms of the record that they've put together as they apply to universities and colleges, and Stanford specifically. We're looking for, I suppose, what one would call a good match, because a lot of students that apply to this institution and schools like it are very well qualified on quantitative measures. They have, reasonably strong test scores. They're in the top of their class. These are all realities of being in a selective environment. So we really have the opportunity to go well beyond that, to do a deep dive into the soul and the nature and the reality of the young person that's applying to us. So we spend a lot of time in the application itself, and we're looking at those essays. You may ask me about that later. We're looking at the recommendations and the support that those students get from their teachers. We're looking for your passion for the intellectual sort of process, as well as looking at what you've sort of done as you've been a high school student or gone all the way through school. So there's no secret formula, and there's no absolute slam dunk answer to the question, because we really have such a broad and deep diversity of students and so many different perspectives. The goal is to try to make a good match with the institution and try to bring people together that really care about what we have to offer. And that's true for any school or college in the country. We're all trying to make a good match. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you what the secret formula is. It's one of the most commonly asked questions in the world.
Yeah, it's fine. This isn't the only interview with Secret. Our last interview was with Brent Hasty of Coca-Cola, and they talked about the secret vault in which they have the formula. But for the Coca-Cola. But speaking of going beyond the quantitative stuff, you're talking about the subjective, an important part of that is the essay. What about a essay makes it stand apart? Is it the way it's written or the way it's delivered? Is there something that comes to mind about how it should be formatted? Or
I don't think there's any, we give no advice, actually, as it relates, although there are hundreds of books written about how you write the great essay. The truth of the matter is what we're trying to get through those essays is a reflection of who you are. And if one tries to craft it in such a way as to be a Pulitzer Prize winning short essay that might even be a little bit out of sync with who we think you are in the other parts of the file, then that may not play well. The truth of the matter is we want students, prospective students, to be transparent, to be honest with themselves, to not engage in 50 different people editing their essay. We want them to sit down and reflect on who they are and think about the questions, give some real thought to the questions without everybody trying to turning to others to try to see if in fact the way you've written an essay meets their expectations. The fact of the matter is you are communicating with us. And so we want you to talk about things that matter to you. And the questions are formulated in a way to try to get at that. So everybody's always trying to figure out, well, what is it exactly that admissions officer wants? And the truth of the matter is we want you to be yourself. We want you to take some time to be bold enough to be able to talk about what matters to you or what you're interested in or what your passions are. And to do that with a level of honesty, to really reflect for a while about really what the sorts of things that you care about. But there's no formula. Obviously, writing a full sentence is pretty good, or spelling correctly is pretty good. So being careful with the way you put together the information that you're sharing with us is helpful, because guess what? We have to read it. And so to the extent that it's readable and really a reflection of who you are and engages us as a reader, then I think that you've gone a long way. But be yourself. Don't let other people manage this process, because in fact there's a billion-dollar industry that's trying to do that.
Exactly. And speaking of reading, you guys reading it, preparing for this interview, reading about how some universities, or a lot of them, hire temporary application or essay readers. So how big of a challenge is it for universities to maintain objectivity, especially in the first read when only one person might be looking at an application and it be someone a temporary, not someone who's been working full time?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question, and it's sometimes when you look at the volume, it just seems completely daunting. It actually is fairly daunting. But we really believe that every young person should have the opportunity and the respect to be considered if they've gone the distance in terms of applying to the university. We want to be open and transparent about the possibilities, but we want to walk away from all these quantitative measures that scare everybody half to death. I think the truth is, yes, we have many professional officers, about 26 officers in our operation, and we do hire in other schools on an annual basis people that are reading that in many cases the vast majority of our what we call seasonal readers have read for years. They've been reading applications, and the key to all this is the training. The key is to ensure that that everybody really has a good sense of where we're trying to get. I, as the dean, will set the tenor and the objectives that we're trying to accomplish. Talk about impartiality. Talk about reading students in the context of their own life experience. These things are all important. And then in any case where you're evaluating a lot of different individuals, you try to also engage in a process called norming. You try to norm your reading so that, in fact, there aren't these wild card, biased opinions finding their way into the application process. Because in our case, and in the case of my colleagues around the country, we want to be open and accessible to all students, and we don't want to come in with any preconceived judgments about who is right and who is wrong. And that's why the breadth and depth and diversity of our incoming classes is quite stunning, and often everybody thinks it's maybe one type of kid, but in fact it really is a reflection of the world in which we live.
And that's one thing we're talking about with Mr. Whitney, Caltech's executive director, that it's the one type of class, basically a diverse class, and you have different kids that comprise that one class. I guess that's
right. And diversity is very broadly defined. It could be first generation to college, it could be fifth generation to college, it could be people that come from many different cultural perspectives, from different religious perspectives, and race and ethnic backgrounds. From low income all the way through high income. We don't come in with any preconceived notions. We want to be attractive. We want to attract young people from all walks of life who have the energy and the desire to pursue their higher education. And we want to be part of the membership of this country, which is stunning, and give them different kinds of choices in terms of where they apply to college and the places they consider. So at the end of the day, the class, if you were to in many of our cases, were to meet the incoming class, you'd just be stunned by the fact that it is very hard to typecast.
And you were talking earlier, because on your website it talks about the importance of intellectual vitality. That's one of the factors you use to judge students. So for the benefit of the audience, can you elaborate by giving a few examples of just what it means to have or demonstrate intellectual vitality?
It's a lot of fun because it's becoming cliche, isn't it? That is the term intellectual vitality. It's used so often that nobody knows what it means. But the fact of the matter is it does have meaning. It really is talking about passion for what you do, deep diving into places things that you're interested in, an ability to express that interest and that passion for whatever it is that you care about. Part of what we're trying to accomplish in looking for intellectual vitality is the fact that you just didn't go through the process. You didn't just continually ask the question, now how do I get an A exactly? But in fact, you as a high school student you found your passion, you found your place into intellectual and academic worlds that sort of drove you to move to the next step, which is to want more, to learn more, to engage more. And all kids are not the same. And this idea of being broadly educated, intensely broadly educated, probably is important. It is important to have some breadth in your education, but it's also important to begin to try to identify the things you really care about. So you might love English literature, or you might like astrophysics or neurobiology, or you might like engineering, but you tend to gravitate towards courses that also feed into your passion. So the reality is we want to hear from kids about what it is that turns them on. And that can also be, to some extent, even things you do outside the classroom, the things you pursue with high levels of interest. That could reflect certainly the use of your intellect and the vitality that goes with it. So obviously one of the most important parts of this is how you express that, how you talk about that when you write to us, and then how others might perceive you. That is, those that write recommendations in your behalf. So it's cliche, but it's something that we care about, and when we see it, we know it.
Hello, Pixel Talk. Today we're gonna do another photography segment. I did one a few weeks ago. I'm assisted by my friend Shannon. Hi.
Friend, I'm your best friend, your only friend.
Today we're gonna go to a place called Land's End, which is in San Francisco, and it gives us a really cool view of the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's also a really pretty hike to do on the sea cliff.
So prepare to spend a day in the life of Maya and Shannon when they hang out together with their only friends.
Bye! We're gonna go hike at Land's End after we do our classes at a coffee shop. Stop laughing at me. We're gonna start at Citra Baths and then go to, I think it's south. Citra Baths is south a little bit, but mostly like to the west.
I think it's north.
And then you go even more north to the tip of the city to get to Land's End Point. So that's what we're doing.
class, picking up some groceries. So I have apples and carrots right now. Maya's probably gonna be mad because it's all healthy. I probably will end up getting Oreos. Got a ton of food. It's good, it's okay.
Down to the water. Let's show them. We are adventurers and we did it by ourselves.
Without our mom.
We're at Citrus Baths right now. The history is that there was a public bathhouse.
People here were dirty, so they needed a place to take a bath. The end.
That's how bathhouses work. We made it. We finished at Citrus Baths and we're walking along the coastal trail now. We're in the middle of the woods trail. We know a lot about nature.
So the history of this is that once upon a time, trees were little and they grew and they're big now.
Great. We're gonna keep walking. We're gonna make our way over to the...
Making our way downtown. And we're homebound.
We're headed to the Land's End Labyrinth.
Okay.
That's our final destination.
We're excited to see some rocks in a circle.
We made it to Mile Rock Beach, which is where the main viewpoint for the Golden Gate Bridge is. We just have a lot of stairs to climb down.
We ate a whole bag of potato chips.
On our way. Okay, we're going. We'll see you there. Basically. We're back.
Hello. Time for dinner.
Cold. We're gonna get some Indian food, some chicken tikka masala.
We had a great day.
We had a great day. It's the
a lot
end.
of great photographs.
I hope you guys like them.
I'm the best model.
Bye, Pixel Talk.
Goodbye.
Thanks for watching. Until then,